You've probably heard stories like mine. The woman who built a $45 million company all by herself, from the ground up. The woman who supposedly has everything. Well, here I am, the woman who has everything, sitting all alone at a table set for three. It's my 67th birthday. I booked this table at Lucille weeks ago. It's not an easy place to get into right here in downtown Chicago. I wanted it to be special. My son, Tony, and his wife, Patricia, had promised they'd be here. Of course, Mom. We wouldn't miss it for the world. That's exactly what Tony said. 7 o'clock came and went. I watched the other tables fill up with couples laughing, families celebrating. It's 7:30 now. I pick up my phone for what feels like the 100th time. The screen is black. No texts, no missed calls. I even double-checked to make sure the ringer was on. It is. A young waiter, a nice kid, glides over. More water, Mrs. Harkins? Can I get you a drink while you wait? He's trying to be kind. I can see the pity in his eyes, and it stings more than the silence. They're just running a little late. Thank you, I say. I even manage a smile, but it feels stiff and fake. I'm sure they'll be here any minute. He nods and walks away, but we both know the truth. They aren't running late. They aren't coming. This feeling, it's not new. This empty chair across from me feels familiar. It reminds me of all those nights at our tiny kitchen table, just me and a mountain of invoices, long after Tony was in bed. Those were the nights I was building Harkins Home Care Solutions from nothing but an idea and a second mortgage. I did it all to build a life for us, especially after his father passed away. I thought he'd be proud. I thought he'd understand. One day, all the sacrifices I made. I missed school plays because I had to meet with investors. I missed baseball games because I was interviewing nurses. I poured every bit of myself into that company. I remember telling myself, one day it will all be worth it. One day we can relax and enjoy this. Well, here I am. I built a $45 million company. I employ over 500 people. I can negotiate a multi-million-dollar contract without breaking a sweat. But I can't get my own son and his wife to show up for my birthday dinner. The waiter comes back. He doesn't even ask this time. He just looks at me, then at the empty place settings. Mrs. Harkins, the kitchen. I hold up a hand. It's all right. They're not coming. The words taste like ash. The loneliness is a cold, heavy thing. It settles right in my chest. You can be in a beautiful, expensive restaurant, surrounded by people, and feel completely invisible. All my life, I've been Mrs. Harkins, the CEO, or Margaret, the boss, or, Mom, I need. That's when the phone rings. It rings when they need something. Mom, we're a little short on the mortgage this month. Mom, Patricia's car died, and she needs a new one for work. Mom, I have this amazing investment opportunity, but I need some capital. But for my birthday? Just for me? Silence. The screen stays dark. I look at the two empty chairs. One for Tony, one for Patricia, and me. I built this entire empire alone, and it looks like I'm celebrating alone, too. I signal the waiter. He's at my side in an instant. You know what? I say, and my voice doesn't even shake. I'm ready to order for myself. And please bring me a glass of the good champagne. I am sad, deeply, achingly sad. But sitting there under the soft lights, I also feel something else. A cold, hard spark of determination. If they won't show up for me, I have to show up for myself. But it doesn't stop the question from looping in my head, the one that's been there for years. Why does it always feel like my family only remembers I exist when they want something from me? The waiter brought the champagne in a tall, crystal flute. I held the cold glass, my first moment of real luxury for the day, and the bubbles rose in a steady, determined line. Funny, this expensive glass in my hand made me think of the old, chipped coffee mugs I used to drink from. Back then, expensive meant buying the brand name coffee instead of the store brand. I wasn't always Mrs. Harkins, the CEO. For a long, long time, I was just Margaret, a widow scrambling to keep the lights on. My husband, Robert, was a good man. He was the one who always believed in my idea for a home care business. Margaret, he'd say, this system you've mapped out for scheduling nurses, it's brilliant. You could help so many people. He had this big, booming laugh that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. But his heart wasn't strong. He passed away so suddenly, right before Tony's 8th birthday. One day, Robert was there, helping Tony build a model airplane at the kitchen table. The next, it was just me, an 8-year-old boy who just lost his father, and an idea for a business that everyone in my life told me was a foolish dream. We were living in a small, 2-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park. It was all we could afford. My office was an old card table I'd wedged into the corner of the living room, right by the drafty window. My day started before sunrise. I'd get Tony ready for school, then rush to my part-time job as a receptionist at a dental office. I hated that job. The phone never stopped ringing, and the dentist, Dr. Klein, always hovered, criticizing how I answered. But it paid the bills. Barely. I'd rush home, pick Tony up from the after-school program, make dinner, and try to spend an hour with him on homework. Once he was in bed, usually around 9, my real workday began. I'd sit at that card table until 2 or 3 in the morning. Just me, the hum of the old refrigerator, and stacks of paper. I was designing the software, writing the business plan, researching state regulations, and cold calling nursing homes trying to get just one person to listen. I was so tired all the time. I lived on lukewarm coffee and sheer, stubborn grit. The bank had turned me down twice. Mrs. Harkins, the loan officer, said, with that same polite pity I saw in the waiter's eyes tonight, "It's a wonderful concept, but you have no collateral, no business experience. It's just too high risk." I had no support. My own sister told me I was crazy. "Margaret, you're a widow with a young son," she'd said. "Stop this fantasy. Stick with the dental office. It has insurance." She was right about one thing. I was running myself into the ground. But the hardest part wasn't the money or the doubts. It was Tony. I remember so clearly one Thursday night. He had his big school play. He wasn't a main character, just third tree from the left, but he'd been practicing his one line for weeks. "The forest is our home." He was so proud. That same Thursday was the only day an investor, a real one, was willing to meet me. He was passing through Chicago and had a 45-minute window at 7 p.m. I had to choose. I'll never forget the look on Tony's face when I told him I couldn't go. "But Mom, you promised. I'm the third tree." "I know, honey. I'm so sorry. This meeting, it's for us. It's to build our future." I arranged for our neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, to take him and videotape it. I got the investment. That $50,000 was the seed that grew into the $45 million company. It was the turning point. When I got home, it was almost midnight. Tony was asleep. His little costume, just brown sweatpants and a green t-shirt with paper leaves stapled to it, was in a sad pile on the floor of his room. The videotape was on the kitchen counter. I never watched it. I couldn't. I sat there at the card table with that signed check in my hand and just cried. I told myself it was worth it. I told myself I was doing it all for him. That all these missed moments, the plays, the baseball games I couldn't get to, the school field trips I couldn't chaperone, were deposits in a bank account. That one day, the success would make up for all the time I'd lost. I missed his birthday parties. I missed his high school graduation because I was closing a merger. I look at the empty chairs at my birthday table tonight. I sacrificed his childhood to build this company, thinking it would guarantee him a perfect adulthood. And now, he and his wife can't even give me one evening of their time. The irony is so sharp it hurts to breathe. I built an entire company dedicated to taking care of people in their old age, and in the process, I ensured I'd be completely alone in mine. I finished the champagne. I even ordered a small dessert, a chocolate lava cake. If I was going to be alone on my 67th birthday, I was at least going to have dessert. That small act of defiance felt good. It was something just for me. And just for me was a new concept. For 30 years, everything had been for the company. Harkins Home Care Solutions. It's on the side of hundreds of vehicles all over Illinois and 3 other states now. We provide in-home nurses, physical therapists, and companions to elderly Americans. We help people stay in their own homes to live with dignity. It's good, honest work. And it made me, on paper, a very wealthy woman. $45 million. That's what the accountants said the company was worth last quarter. All those missed plays and 3 a.m. nights at the card table had paid off. I have a beautiful condo overlooking the lake. I have a car that starts every time I turn the key. I have a savings account that means I never, ever have to be afraid of the power being shut off again. I had given Tony and Patricia a beautiful wedding. I paid off their student loans. I gave them the down payment for their house in the suburbs, a house much bigger than anything I could have dreamed of at their age. I did all that gladly, because that's what I thought the money was for, to make their lives easier, to give Tony all the things I couldn't when he was that little third tree from the left. But it seems the more I gave, the more they expected. The more I solved their problems, the bigger their problems became. I'm sitting here in this fancy restaurant, alone. But my phone, which has been silent all night, was very busy last week. I remember picking it up on Tuesday. It was a voicemail from Tony. It wasn't a call, you understand. A voicemail. Hey, Mom. Hope you're doing good. Listen, just calling because, well, Patricia and I hit a little snag. You know that investment I told you about? The crypto thing? It didn't quite pan out. Long story short, we're about $10,000 short on the mortgage this month. I know, it's terrible timing. But if you could just spot us, just to tide us over, I'd really appreciate it. Give me a call back. Love you. $10,000. Spot us. Like he was asking for $20 for gas. I hadn't even finished processing that when 2 days later, a text came in from Patricia. It was a picture of a shiny, new, white SUV. The text read, "Isn't she a beauty? My old clunker is on its last legs. Think you could help me with a loan for this? I found a great deal. We could talk about it at your birthday dinner." I gave them that old clunker as a gift 5 years ago. My stomach had just twisted into a cold knot. It wasn't even the money. It was the complete, staggering lack of awareness. It was the fact that love you was just something he tacked on at the end, a password to get to the vault. And here's the kicker. I sent the $10,000. I sent it because he's my son, because I felt guilty, because I remembered the look on his face when I missed his play, and a part of me is still trying to make up for it. I told myself it was the last time. But I never heard, thank you. The money left my account, and I just got a one-word text. Got it. Now, my birthday dinner. The one Patricia herself had mentioned in her text about the car. And nothing. No call. No text. Just an empty table. They got the $10,000. They didn't get the car loan. Not yet, anyway. And now, they can't even be bothered to show up. I feel like a fool. A rich fool, Maybe, but a fool nonetheless. I feel used. I'd built an empire to give my son a better life. And in return, he and his wife treat me like a bank. An ATM that's supposed to spit out cash on demand. No, please, or thank you required. My accomplishments, my sacrifices, they don't see any of that. They just see the $45 million. They see what it can do for them. I paid the bill, left a generous tip for the kind waiter, and walked out into the cold Chicago night. The anger and the resentment were mixing with the sadness, and it was a bitter, uncomfortable feeling. The more I give, the more they demand. When does it stop? I didn't even take a cab. I walked home from the restaurant. It was a cold, clear Chicago night, and the air felt sharp in my lungs. I wanted it too. I wanted to feel something besides that dull, heavy ache in my chest. My condo is on the 30th floor. I usually love the view, the lake, the lights, the whole city spread out like a carpet of jewels. Tonight, I didn't even turn on the lamps. I just kicked off my heels and stood at the dark window watching the tiny headlights of the cars moving on Lakeshore Drive. They all looked like they had somewhere to be, someone to go home to. I was standing there, wrapped in my own silence, when my phone buzzed on the granite countertop. I looked at it. The screen lit up. Tony. My heart did a stupid little flip. That's the mother in me. It never learns. I thought, maybe something terrible happened. A car accident. An emergency. That's why they didn't come. I grabbed the phone. It was a text message. Mom, so sorry. Things got crazy here, lost track of time. Happy birthday. Can you talk for a sec? Lost track of time. On my 67th birthday. The dinner we planned for 3 weeks. He lost track of time. I read the text 3 times, and the anger was so hot it almost choked me. But before I could decide whether to throw the phone or just ignore him, it started ringing. It was him. Calling. I took a deep breath. I told myself to be calm. He's my son. I'm his mother. I swiped to answer. Hello, Tony. Mom. Hey. Happy birthday. He sounded rushed, like he was checking an item off a to-do list. God, I am so sorry about dinner. It's been absolutely insane over here. I see, I said. My voice was colder than the lake out my window. I waited, Tony. I was worried. I know, and I feel terrible. Patricia says happy birthday, too. She's right here. I heard nothing in the background. No, happy birthday, Margaret. Just him. Listen, he said, and his voice shifted. It was a change so small I might have missed it years ago. But I know it now. It's the I'm glad I caught you voice. It's the prelude to an ask. I'm actually glad I caught you, he said. My hand tightened on the phone. Oh, yeah. So, I know I just hit you up for the mortgage thing. And I promise that's all getting sorted out. But, Mom, I've been thinking, since you're doing so well with the company, and you've got all that stable income. I said nothing. I just stood there in the dark, watching the traffic. Mom, are you there? I'm here, Tony. Great. So, I was thinking maybe you could help Patricia and me with this new investment opportunity. I actually laughed. It was a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. An investment opportunity. Yeah, it's this land deal. It's practically zero risk. And the payout, Mom, the payout is huge. It would finally set us up. We just need the initial capital. And I thought, who better to ask than my own mom? The nerve. The absolute, breathtaking nerve of it. He stood me up on my birthday. He let me sit alone in a restaurant being pitted by waiters. And he calls me, not with a real apology, but to ask for more money. Tony, I said, interrupting him. Do you have any idea what you're saying? What? It's a great deal. I can send you the prospectus. You stood me up, I said. The words were quiet, but they felt heavy. Tonight. My birthday. I sat at that table alone for an hour and a half. And you're calling me now to ask for money? There was a pause. For just a second, he sounded embarrassed. Mom, I know it looks bad, but this is why we couldn't make it. We were running the numbers on this deal all night. It's time sensitive. This is for our future. You always taught me to prioritize work, right? To seize the opportunities. And that's what broke me. Not the missed dinner. Not the $10,000 for the mortgage. Not even the ask for this new deal. It was that. You taught me to prioritize work. He was right. I did teach him that. I taught him that with every school play I missed. I taught him that with every baseball game I wasn't at. I taught him that every night he went to bed while I was still at the card table, working. I had shown him for his entire life that the deal comes before family, that the opportunity is more important than the person. I built a $45 million company by prioritizing work over my son. And now he was prioritizing his work over me. The loneliness I felt in the restaurant was nothing. This was a void. This was the realization that my entire life's sacrifice had been for nothing. It hadn't bought his love or his respect. It had just bought his greed. It had taught him the wrong lesson. Mom, you still there? So what do you think? Can we talk about it tomorrow? I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I looked old, and I looked tired. I have to go, Tony, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. But the deal, Mom, it closes on Friday. Good night, Tony. I hung up. How much more? How much more of myself, my money, my dignity was I supposed to sacrifice for people who don't appreciate a single second of it? For the first time in my life, I wasn't just questioning them. I was questioning me. I hung up the phone. The silence in the condo was absolute, a sudden, heavy blanket. For a moment, I just stood there. Then the phone buzzed again, lighting up the dark room. Tony, of course. He was calling right back, probably to finish his sales pitch. I did something I've never done. I pressed the do not disturb button. I silenced my son. I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't listen to that hopeful, greedy voice on the other end. I just couldn't. I slid open the glass door to my balcony. The air was colder now, past midnight, but I welcomed it. It snapped me out of the fog of guilt and anger I'd been living in. I grabbed a throw blanket from the sofa, wrapped it tight around my shoulders, and sat down in the metal patio chair. The city was spread out in front of me, a million pinpricks of light. I'd always loved this view. It felt like a symbol of everything I'd built. Tonight, it just felt empty. I sat there, replaying that awful conversation. You taught me to prioritize work. His words just echoed in the quiet. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right either. I found myself thinking about Robert, my late husband. He was the one who believed in me before I did. I remembered a conversation we had. So long ago, I could barely picture the kitchen we were standing in. I was complaining about my receptionist job, and I'd sketched out my home care idea on the back of a utility bill. He'd taken the bill from my hand and looked at it, then at me. You're going to do this, Margaret, he said. He had this absolute certainty that always baffled me. You're going to build this, but be careful. I'd laughed. Careful of what? The bank saying no? No, he said, and his voice got very quiet. Be careful that your success doesn't cost you what actually matters. Don't get so busy building the castle that you forget to let the people you love inside the walls. I never really knew what he meant. Until tonight. I had built a castle, a $45 million fortress, and I was sitting in it all alone. I thought about all the money I'd given Tony and Patricia, the house, the cars, the student loans, the $10,000 spot for their mortgage. I wasn't just giving them money. I was paying them. I was paying them for the guilt I felt. I was paying them for every missed school play, every lonely night, every time I chose a balance sheet over a bedtime story. I was paying them to approve of me. I was paying them to validate the choices I'd made, to show me that all those sacrifices hadn't been a mistake. But sitting there with the cold wind on my face, I had a realization. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It was just a cold, simple, quiet truth. I didn't build this company for them. I told myself I did. I told everyone I did. It's all for Tony. But it wasn't. I built it for me. I built it because I was terrified of being poor. I built it because I was a widow with a young son, and I was drowning in fear. I built it because I needed to prove to the world and to myself that I was more than just a receptionist, that I was smart, that I was capable, that I could survive on my own. I built it for me, and that wasn't a crime. It wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was survival. The problem wasn't that I built the company. The problem was that I'd spent the last decade letting my son and his wife make me feel guilty for it. They never saw me. They never saw the woman working at the card table until 3 a.m. They never saw the fear or the grit or the desperate hope. They just saw the result. They saw the money. And they saw a mother so consumed by old guilt that she'd write a check for any amount just to feel for a moment like she was finally doing the right thing. A new feeling settled over me. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. I am done. I am done enabling them. I am done paying for their bad investments. I am done funding a lifestyle they can't afford. I will always love Tony. He is my son, but I will not let him or his wife bleed me dry emotionally or financially one more day. I will not sacrifice my own peace of mind just to get a happy birthday text. I love my family, but I'm starting to think I need to love myself, too. I stood up. The city lights looked different now. They didn't look lonely. They looked like mine. I earned them. I went back inside, closed the balcony door, and for the first time in 30 years, I knew exactly what I was going to do in the morning. I slept. For the first time in what felt like years, I truly slept. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. with my mind racing about business projections or guilt. I woke up the next morning, the day after my 67th birthday, and the clarity was still there. It hadn't been a temporary, middle-of-the-night fantasy. It was real. I made my coffee, sat at the small desk in my living room, the one overlooking the lake, and I opened my laptop. I knew I couldn't do this over the phone. A phone call would turn into a shouting match. Or worse, I'd hear the disappointment in his voice, and that old, familiar guilt would make me fold. An email was clean. It was firm. It was final. I typed in both their email addresses, Tony Harkins and Patricia Harkins. My fingers hovered over the keys. Then I just wrote, "Dear Tony and Patricia, thank you for the birthday wishes. Tony, I was sorry we couldn't celebrate together last night. I'm writing because I need to be clear about the phone call that followed. I will not be funding the land deal or any other investment opportunities. I have been giving this a lot of thought. My love for you both is unconditional, but my financial support can no longer be. I realize that in my attempts to make up for the past and to give you a good life, I have created a dynamic that is unhealthy for all of us. I have become an enabler, not a mother. From now on, I will no longer be providing money for investments, mortgage shortfalls, or non-emergency purchases. I am always here for you in a true, unforeseen crisis. But the day-to-day financing is over. I am proud of what I built, and I am proud of the man I raised. It's time for you both to build your own life, and I have complete faith that you can. I hope we can begin to build a new relationship, one based on family, not finances. Love, Mom. I read it once. It was the most honest and the hardest email I'd ever written. I hit send before I could second guess myself. A strange quiet settled over me. It felt like I'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if I'd fly or fall. I didn't have to wait long. Maybe 20 minutes. My phone rang and Tony flashed on the screen. I took a breath and answered. Hello, Tony. What is this? He didn't say hello. His voice was tight, furious. What is this email? Is this a joke? Because it's not funny. It's not a joke, Tony. It's exactly what I said. I meant every word. You meant every word. After everything, Mom, you're just, what? Cutting us off. Because we missed your birthday dinner? Is that what this is? You're punishing us. This isn't a punishment. Tony, this is a boundary. A boundary. He scoffed. Don't give me that therapy speak. This is you being selfish. You're sitting on $45 million and I'm asking for a simple investment and you're lecturing me about being unhealthy. I heard Patricia's voice in the background, sharp and angry. What is she saying? She's cutting us off. Tony yelled, not to me, but to her. Then he was back. Mom, do you have any idea what sacrifices we've made? Do you know how hard it is to be your son? I was stunned. My son? What sacrifices have you made? Are you kidding me? Growing up, you were never there. It was always the company, the business. I had to raise myself. And Patricia, do you know how many times people ask her, oh, your mother-in-law is Margaret Harkins? You must be set for life. It's embarrassing. We're struggling to build our own reputation, and you're holding all the cards. I heard Patricia grab the phone. Margaret, this is ridiculous. After all the times we've supported you, listen to you talk about your company. You're just going to pull the ladder up behind you? You got yours, so now you don't care about us. Patricia, I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady. All the fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I am not pulling up a ladder. I gave you the ladder. I gave you the down payment on your house. I paid off your college loans. I've been helping you climb for 10 years. What I will not do anymore is carry you. There was silence on their end. They weren't used to this. They were used to me crumbling. So that's it, Tony said, his voice quiet now and meaner. The land deal closes Friday. You know that. You're really going to let us lose this opportunity just to prove a point. Yes, I said. This isn't about the land deal, Tony. It's about your next land deal and the one after that. It's over. You'll regret this, Mom. No, Tony, I said, looking out at the morning sun hitting the lake. I think I've been regretting not doing this for a very long time. He hung up on me. The click of the line was loud in the quiet room. I set the phone down. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't falling. I was standing. I felt lighter. It was a strange, giddy feeling. I had upset my son. I had disappointed my daughter-in-law. They were furious with me. And I was okay. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living for their approval. I was living for my own well-being. I knew it wasn't over. I knew this was just the beginning. Would they ever understand? Would they ever forgive me? Or would they just keep rattling the cup, trying to make me feel guilty? I didn't know. But as I went to the kitchen to pour myself a second cup of coffee, I realized I was smiling. The silence that followed that phone call was profound. The first week was the hardest. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach would clench, expecting it to be Tony, either yelling again or, worse, giving me a tearful apology designed to make me feel terrible. But it wasn't. It was just business emails, notifications from my bridge club, a text from my sister. Tony and Patricia went completely silent. No calls, no texts, Not even an angry email. It was like I had ceased to exist. A year ago, that silence would have destroyed me. It would have proven all my worst fears, that they only loved me for my money, that I was a terrible mother, that I would die alone. But now, it just felt quiet. And in that quiet, I started to find me again. The Margaret who existed before she was the CEO, or the ATM. I started calling old friends, women I'd been too busy for. I had lunch with my friend Sarah, who I'd known since college. We didn't talk about my company's quarterly reports or my son's finances. We talked about a new book she'd read, about her grandkids, about a terrible movie we'd both seen. It was normal. It was wonderful. I started leaving the office at 5:30 p.m. I delegated more to my executive team. They were more than capable. I found they actually thrived when I wasn't micromanaging every detail. My business continued to grow, even when I wasn't sacrificing my last drop of blood to it. I used that newfound time. I went to the symphony. I took a weekend trip to a little town in Michigan just to see the fall colors. I sat on a park bench and read a novel for 3 straight hours. I was making new memories, and they had absolutely nothing to do with my net worth or my family's expectations. Then came the invitation. My niece, my sister's daughter, was getting married. It was a big family wedding. There was no avoiding it. I knew Tony and Patricia would be there. I spent a week agonizing over what I would wear, but I knew what I was really agonizing about. This would be the first time I'd see them since the email. I walked into that ballroom, and the first person I saw was Tony. He was standing near the bar with Patricia. He looked thinner and tired. He saw me, our eyes met across the room, and he looked away. He didn't come over. He didn't even nod. My heart ached. That was my boy, my son, and he was looking at me like I was a stranger. Patricia, however, stared right at me. Her expression was cold. I kept my chin up. I smiled, greeted my sister, and found my table. I would not let this ruin my niece's day. I managed to avoid them through the ceremony and cocktail hour. But I knew it wouldn't last. It happened as I was getting a glass of champagne. Margaret. I turned. It was Patricia. She had a tight, fixed smile on her face. Tony was hovering a few feet behind her, looking at his shoes. Patricia, I said calmly, you look lovely. Thank you, she said. It's a nice wedding, isn't it? So expensive. She looked around the lavish ballroom. I was just saying to Tony, it's amazing what you can do when you have, well, support. I just looked at her. I didn't take the bait. It's a beautiful celebration for a wonderful couple. Right. Her smile faltered. Look, Margaret, this whole thing, it's just been awful. Tony is miserable. This boundary of yours, it's tearing him apart. I'm sorry to hear he's in pain. Patricia, you could fix it, she said, her voice dropping. We're not asking for a handout. We have a real opportunity. A small business loan. That's it. For a new home staging company Patricia wants to start. It's a sure thing. Just a small loan to get it off the ground. And we can forget this whole awful, awkward situation. We can be a family again. I looked past her at my son. He was still staring at the floor, letting his wife fight his battle. The old Margaret would have caved. The guilt would have washed over me. I'm tearing my family apart. I would have written the check just to have my son look at me again. But I wasn't that Margaret. No, Patricia, I said. It was quiet but firm. Her smile vanished. No. My decision hasn't changed. I will not be giving you a loan for this or any other business. You'd really do that, she hissed, keeping her voice low. At a wedding? You'd really choose your money over your own son. I am not choosing money over my son, Patricia. I am choosing to stop being your bank. I love my son, but I will not be manipulated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to congratulate my niece. I walked away. I didn't look back. My hands were shaking just slightly. But as I walked across that ballroom, I realized something. I felt no guilt. None. Just a clean, sharp sadness that it had come to this. I was no longer responsible for their happiness, for their bad investments, for their mortgages. I was only responsible for me. I enjoyed the rest of the wedding. I danced with my nephew. I laughed with my sister. I lived my life. And the freedom of it all, it was liberating. I knew the battle wasn't over, but I finally knew I could win. The question was, could I win and still have a son? Or was the son I knew already gone? It's been 6 months since my niece's wedding. The silence from Tony and Patricia continued, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. It just was. I'm sitting in my office now, the late afternoon sun spilling across my desk. I'm looking at an email from my executive team about our expansion into Wisconsin. It's going well. I find myself smiling. This company, this success, it's mine. I don't feel guilty about it. I feel proud. I worked hard to create this life, and I finally feel like I'm the one living in it. My personal phone, the one on the desk, starts to buzz. I glance at the screen, and my heart doesn't drop, but it does pause. It's Tony. I let it ring a second time, take a calm breath, and answer. Hello, Tony. There's a long silence on the other end. I can hear him breathing. Hi, Mom. His voice is different. The edge is gone. The anger, the frantic sales pitch energy, it's all gone. He just sounds small. I wanted to call. He starts, and his voice cracks a little. Mom, I'm sorry. I wait. I've heard him say, I'm sorry before, but it was always followed by a but. I'm not sorry. I mean, I am sorry about the money, but that's not. I'm sorry for my behavior, for your birthday, for all of it. I've been a terrible son. I listen. I just listen, letting the words settle. The old me would be crying, saying, it's okay, just desperate to end the conflict. But I'm not that person anymore. Patricia and we're in counseling, he says, so quietly I can barely hear him. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I miss my mom. And I was wondering if maybe you'd be willing to just get a cup of coffee with me sometime? No strings. I promise. I look out my window at the city. My city. I realize in this moment that I can love my son without having to sacrifice myself on the altar of his expectations. I can love him, but I also love myself enough now to never, ever tolerate that manipulation again. Yes, Tony, I say, my voice is steady. I'd like that. Let's get coffee. We make a plan for Saturday. When I hang up, I'm not sure what will happen. Maybe this is a real start. Maybe it's just another cycle. But I know deep in my bones that any relationship we have from this day forward will be on my terms. I look at the life I've built, the peace I've finally fought for. Will I ever get the love and respect I truly deserve from my family? Or have I finally, at 67, learned to accept that I don't need them to feel complete? I guess time will tell. That's my story. And it brings me to a question for you. What would you do if your family kept asking you for more without ever truly appreciating your success? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, or if it reminded you of someone in your own life, please like this video and share it. It really helps. Most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future stories. Lastly, remember to download this wonderful book called Coming Back to Myself, 60 Liberating Truths to Find Yourself Again. You'll find it in the pinned comment below. Now, if you like this story, go ahead and click on the next video appearing on your screen, because in it is a story of betrayal and revolt like you've never seen before on her Kindle Stories. Thank you for watching.